Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to our ISKCON Bulla official YouTube channel. Today I am going to discuss 11th chapter of 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where symptoms of conditioned and liberated living entities are described. We cannot know who is conditioned, who is liberated by seeing only. It is from their symptoms only we can understand. The Lord says these things to Uddhava. And the difference between conditioned and liberated living entities, the characteristics of a saintly person, and the different aspects of the practice of devotional service. All these things are being described here. In the previous chapter, Uddhava had presented questions regarding conditioned and liberated souls. In his replies, the Almighty Lord Sri Krishna states that although the spirit soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on account of his infinitesimal nature, very minute nature, he falls into contact with the material energy, which causes him to accept the covering designations of the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But when he achieves the shelter of pure devotional service, he becomes designated as eternally liberated. Transcendental knowledge is therefore the cause of the living entity's liberation, and ignorance is the cause of his bondage. Both knowledge and ignorance are produced by the Maya energy of Lord Sri Krishna and are his eternal potencies. The living entities who become attracted to the modes of nature are bewildered by false ego, which causes them to see themselves as the enjoyer of misery and confusion, happiness, distress, danger, and so on. In this way, they meditate upon such states of being, although in the real or spiritual world, these things do not exist. Both the jiva or individual soul and the super soul reside within the same body. The difference between them is that the Almighty Super Soul, being fully cognizant, doesn't indulge in enjoying the fruits of material work, but remains simply as a witness, whereas the infinitesimal conditioned living jiva, a living entity, being ignorant, suffers the consequence of his own work. The liberated jiva, in spite of being within a material body, because of the remaining reactions of his past activities, doesn't become disturbed by the happiness and suffering of the body. He sees such bodily experience in the same way that a person who has just awakened from a dream sees his dream experiences. On the other hand, although the conditioned living entity is by nature not the enjoyer of the happiness and misery of the body, he imagines himself to be the enjoyer of his bodily experiences, just as a person in a dream imagines his dream experience to be real. Just as the sun reflected upon water is not actually bound up in the water, and just as the air is not confined to some particular segment of the sky, similarly, a detached person takes advantage of his broad outlook on the world to cut off all his doubts within the sword of appropriate renunciation, yukta vairagya. Since his life force, senses, mind, and intelligence have no tendency to fix themselves on sense objects, he remains liberated even while situated within the material body. Regardless of whether he is harassed or worshipped, he remains equipoised. He is therefore considered liberated even in this life. Yajasya haradasya karmana manusa gira nikhilasu apyavasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Stated by Rupa Goswami and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. A liberated person has nothing to a liberated person has nothing to do with the piety and sin of this world, but rather sees everything equally. A self-satisfied sage doesn't praise or condemn anyone. The same things are also described by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter. Arjuna also asked the same questions. So the Lord answers in his Srimad Bhagavatam 14th chapter, last. Then he doesn't speak uselessly to anyone and doesn't fix his mind on material things. Rather, he is always immersed in meditation about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the eyes of fools, he seems to be a speechless, crazy person, a madman. Even if someone has studied and even taught all the different Vedic literatures, if he has not developed pure attraction to the service of the Personality of Godhead, he has accomplished nothing beyond his own labor. That is stated in text 18. Sabda Brahmani Nisnando, non Nisnayat Parajadi, Samastasya Sramapalo, Yadano Miva Rakhyada. Siddhar Swami said, Jastu Kevalam Sabda Brahmani Avigya Nantu Ukdei. Shabda Brahmani means the Vedic hymns. Shabda Brahmani, Nisna Avigya, he knows all the verses, etc. Uktai Sadhanai Tadartha Nishto Bhavet Tam Nindanti. Kindu non Isnayat means he doesn't practice for Artha Nisnado Bhavet. He doesn't practice to take shelter of the Lord. So he is being condemned here. One should study only those scriptures in which the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his enchanting pastimes, and the nectarian topics of his various incarnations are scientifically discussed. Thus one gains the highest good fortune. Srimad Bhagavatam is like that. That's why we are describing this Srimad Bhagavatam. However, by studying scriptures other than these, one simply acquires misfortune. With full determination, one should properly understand the identity of the soul and give up false identification with this material body. He may then offer his heart as the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the reservoir of all love, and attain real peace. When the mind is carried away by the three modes of nature, it can no longer meditate upon properly on the transcendental supreme truth. After many lifetimes, faithful persons who have performed Vedic sacrifices for acquiring religiosity, economic development, and sense of gratification, dharma, artha, kama, like that, finally engage in hearing, chanting, and constantly thinking of the Supreme Lord's all auspicious pastimes, which purify the entire universe. That we are doing here now. Servant Kirtan of the Lord. Such persons then achieve the association of a bona fide spiritual master and saintly devotees. After that, by the mercy of the spiritual master, they begin to follow the paths set out by the standard authorities of spiritual life, the Mahajanas, and become actually perfect in realization of their own true identity. Having heard these instructions from Lord Krishna, Uddhava further desired to understand the characteristics of a factually saintly person and the different aspects of devotional practice. Lord Krishna replied that a real sadhu or Vaishnava is qualified with the following characteristics. From 29 to 32, these four texts, Lord describes all these things. Kripado akrutadoha titikyu sarvadehinam satyasaro anavadhyatma shama sarvo takaraka कामेरहतधीर दांतो मृदु सुचिर अकिंचनः अनिहो मीतभुक शांतः स्थिरो मच्छरणो मुनि. Machcharan is very important. Means he has taken shelter of the Lord. That is the most important characteristics or important symptom of the devotee. And Muni, apramato gaviratma, dhritiman jita sadgunaha, amani manado kalyo, maitraha karunika kavi, anjaivam gunan dosan, मया दिष्टान अपि शोकान आज्ञा एव गुणान दोष्टान मयि दिष्टान अपि शोकान धर्मान संत्यज्य च सर्वान मांग भजते सत्य सत्यम. In one verse, he summarizes all the devotees' good qualities. Its meaning is like that. He is merciful, non-envious, always. In this way, there are so many definitions there. All this have been described in English. So I told it in Sanskrit. Those who want the meaning, they can refer to Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, 64 parts, angas of devotional service described. The practice of devotional service includes 64 kinds of activities. Just like it stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So, from 29 to 31, we hear 28 qualities of a saintly person, and verse 32 explains the highest perfection of life. Agya iva gunan dosan maya dishtan api shokan dharman santajya sa sarvan puman bhajanti ma sa sattama. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Lord says, Adhar sarva dharman paritejya. Only mam ekam saranam braja. That is the first class devotee. Here also the Lord says like that. After this, the process of worshipping the deity of the Supreme Lord is described in brief. It is a very vast chapter, so we have described it in nutshell. So you may, for further inquiry, for further knowledge, you may refer to Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. So thank you very much for listening to our discourse, and please don't forget to subscribe, share and like our channel and get the blessings of the Lord. Hare Krishna.